Welcome to the show. It is the Selbyist Godcast. I'm TJ. That's Zack. Zack, do you ever wake up in the morning and just think to yourself how thankful you are that we live in the universe, the reality that spit out Jose Ramirez, and we're here to see it?
It's usually a little far down on the list. I'll wake up in the morning and think, ow, how does that hurt? And then I'll think, oh my God, I've had to pee for 6 hours. And then I'll think, wait, are the kids up yet? And then I think, oh man, Jose Ramirez is just crushing it lately, and I'm here to witness it. That's usually the pecking order.
Yeah, I mean, we're overfilled with joy getting to watch this man play every single day. I can't imagine being on the other end of the spectrum, getting up out of bed and thinking, how am I going to get this guy out? Or you could be like Ron Washington and think to yourself, we're just not even going to try. If the game's on the line, we're just going to punt. We're going to move on to the next guy. My favorite part of the entire weekend was the little exchange that they caught as he's deciding whether or not they're going to walk Jose again, which, by the way, he takes personally later and crushes home runs, and that's what makes this all fantastic to watch. But they go to the dugout, and he's deciding, and it's Ron Washington. This is not as buttoned up and as everything is already spit out on a spreadsheet for every other younger manager, right? He's thinking gut. We're seeing the gut decision in real time, and the mics by the dugout catch him saying, don't even F with him, and tells the catcher to send him to first base, which, of course, Al Pawlowski says, I think he said don't even mess with him, which made it even better. But it was that entire exchange. He says, don't even screw with this. Let's put him on first base. We're not even going to mess with him in this situation. But still, here's Jose later in the game and in the series finding ways to impact it when he's taking his walks and also hitting the bombs.
Yeah, my favorite part about it is they walk him intentionally twice in the first 3 innings. And so after the game, I think people on both sides are asking players and managers, were you surprised? Does it make sense to you? And everyone is like, of course they did. Look what he did when they didn't walk him, which is, I mean, it's like we shouldn't be, of course they're intentionally walking him in the first inning. Yeah, why wouldn't they? I was going to say he's on a heater now. I don't even know if it's a heater. I asked Stephen Kwan, is this a hot streak or is this just Jose? And he's like, this is just him. He looks like he is like counting down the nanoseconds until his next at bat.
Now the hitting streak comes to an end, but the on-base streak still in play. That's 28 games now. Second longest active streak in Major League Baseball behind Vladdy Jr. And
have I told my Ron Washington story on this pod before?
I think you have, but it's been several years. I'm sure we have a new audience here. You should definitely tell it.
I mean, that guy is a legend, obviously, and I don't know. So this must have been like a decade ago now, but he was managing the Rangers, and I sat in on his pregame. And I needed a quote from him about someone. I don't remember what it was. So everyone disperses. I exit the office. And then like a couple minutes, I poke my head back in. And he's in his office by himself. And I said to him, like, I don't know this guy. He doesn't know me. And I said, hey, you got a minute? I wanted to follow up with something. And he's staring at his phone. He's just engrossed in it. And he's like, hey, come here a second. And he's like, I'm like, okay, like what? This is weird.
Yeah, please.
Walk up to his.
Yeah, right. Like, tell me what you think could be on this phone as you're coming around the desk.
And also, like, I don't even think he looked up at me. Like, I could have been anybody. And so I walk into the office and I walk over to his desk, and he's playing Candy Crush. Remember that game?
Yes, of course.
And he goes, I just can't beat this level. I'm stuck on this level. It was level 29. And he's like, if you can help me beat this level, I'll answer anything you want. It just so happens that at that point in my life, I think personally I was on like level 1500. It's all I would do on flights. And sadly, shortly after that, I think I updated my phone one time and it erased all my progress. But I had no problem helping him beat that level, and he answered my question. It was great.
Just imagine if you had been on the Texas beat, and then you would have unlocked a way to get any information you wanted from this guy forever.
From a dude who's a great quote, has stories upon stories.
It would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Really should have transferred beats at that point.
I remember being a young writer and standing in on like Jim Leland and Ron Gardenhire when those guys would be in their underwear with their feet on the desk, just telling stories, ripping people, but trusting that, you would do the right thing as a reporter and maybe not write every single thing you hear. And I just remember being very nervous walking up to Ron Washington, not knowing what to expect. And I just wonder what level he's on now.
Yeah, really missed opportunity there to check in on that and just see. And then maybe get more of the thought process behind walking Ramirez every time he comes up. I had seen he had done this before with Aaron Judge recently because it had popped up on my TikTok. This is early in the game.
You're what?
On TikTok. That the thing that like is going to be, I would say it's hip and cool now, but it's probably not. It's actually, the kids have probably moved on to something even better. But I had seen the video of him putting up the four fingers, telling Aaron Judge to go to first base. And at that moment, I'm working through it, and I remember having conversations with Terry Francona about Miguel Cabrera and how he would say, yeah, we could walk him every single time, but that's probably not the best baseball thing because that's a guaranteed 1,000 on-base percentage. He's always on base. And, of course, we would always look behind Miggy and see Victor Martinez looming behind him. And it's like, well, that's an equally as difficult out. Maybe he doesn't bring the power that Miggy does, but he's a great hitter. And so it made for a rock and a hard place situation. With Judge, I get it because he's the best hitter on the planet right now, and he is just going off. He's backing up the MVP season with another one. And so I'm thinking about that, and that doesn't seem crazy. But then you get to doing it with Jose, and we've seen teams do it a little bit, especially when you don't feel like he has great protection behind him. You have Manzardo now. You have Santana swinging the bat the way that he is in the month of May has been fantastic. But still, this is what makes the idea of lineup protection sort of silly. It's not as big of a deal as we can often think that it is, because if I have a choice between even Carlos Santana on his hottest streak or Jose being in his hottest streak right now, of course I'm going to choose to put this guy on first base. The funny thing is that even when you think you're safe and you've come out of the woods and everything's okay because he can't tie it with one swing of the bat, he still finds a way to get Cleveland closer to the lead and eventually help them win the game.
I just think he's doing everything right now. We've seen him have hot stretches before, but this is over a month now. And I thought early in the streak, he was doing a good job of taking singles, drawing walks, being patient, which I know for him has been tough to do at times, especially when he doesn't have guys around him producing and he's got to carry the entire lineup. But then we've seen the power lately too, and I think that comes with pitchers understanding he's not going to chase right now, or he's going to take that pitch on the outer part of the plate and just line it back up the middle. So it's almost, I don't want to compare him to Nolan Jones, and we can talk about Nolan Jones in a little bit, but you've seen Nolan Jones kind of go from that,
Gotta keep our
my
streak
metrics are
going.
great, and I want to just crush a 7-run homer and get all my stats up to where they should be. And we've seen him just hit singles, drive it back up the middle. And eventually you hope that changes what the pitcher does and then maybe allows you to hit for power. I think you're seeing that with Ramirez, where he's just, it is so hard to pitch him right now because he's willing to be patient and wait for you to make a mistake or you to throw it in his nitro zone. And I'll never tire of talking about him on this show. I feel like every couple of weeks we spend like 30 minutes just talking about the Hall of Fame and like his stats, and I hope it doesn't get tiresome to our listeners. But like I was pulling up again the list of players with 300 homers and 300 steals because like he's gonna get there in the next calendar year probably, and it's just incredible like how this guy doesn't slow down. And he's hitting three. I feel like I have said for years and years and years in this show, like, I feel like this is the year Jose's just going to hit 300 because he can. I mean, he's done it in the past. It's been since 2017, but like, he can hit for average. He can draw walks. He can have a high on base percentage, and he can hit for power. He can do it all at the plate. And I think you're just seeing that well-rounded hitter that's always been inside of him, and it's just insane that we're seeing it at 32. Like there's no evidence that he's slowing down, and it makes you wonder then what the numbers will look like in a few years, and does he join Barry Bonds as the only 350 guy? It's insane.
They look so similar too, Jose and Barry Bonds. I don't ever get tired of talking about him, and anytime we get an opportunity where it's fresh to talk about, I don't want it to be a forced thing where we just discuss him every single show. But it's funny that it comes on the heels of him starting the season. We're having conversations first few weeks of the season. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't like, oh, here's MVP Jose, perennial vote getter in that category, going to finish in the top 5, if not a finalist. Well, he's having an okay year. Maybe this is kind of who he is. Now he's like a 15, 20% above league average hitter. He's still solid all the way across the board. And then he just goes nuts to the point where, no, now he's just going to hit 330. What is this? What is this man? It's fun that he still finds ways to surprise us this late in his career. But one of the funniest things that is absolutely true that I heard said about Jose is we could talk about the kind of hitter he is, but that's only a portion of what makes him so great. We've talked about that in the past. What makes Jose great is that he's great all across the board. It's not any one thing that stands out. But I heard a conversation with Hammy and Craig Albernaz before the game on Sunday, and Albernaz said one of the best parts about Jose is not only that he's a smart player, but then watching his reactions when he doesn't do something that he recognizes could have been an edge that he could have had, something that other people wouldn't even think of. And he's mad that he didn't do it, whether it's a ball in the dirt that he doesn't take off and he realizes, oh man, I could have taken an extra base here. Or it's some other smart baseball IQ play that no one on the planet would even consider. And he's pissed off at himself for not doing the thing that no one in his position ever would have. That's what makes him great, because not only does he have the smarts, but he holds himself to such a high standard. And we've also talked about in the past, we loved the Tito happy dad expression he would get when glowing about a certain player. And Jose gets this when he sees a teammate, especially a younger player. If a younger player takes an extra base, scores or goes in a ball in the gap, and they go first to third when nobody else would think to do it. And they always go to Jose, and he's always so proud. He's got the proud papa smile because he loves seeing that rub off on other guys too.
So, two things. One, he is always the guy who will emerge from the dugout when a player gets their first major league hit, and they toss it back to the dugout, and every single time, and he's done this for 8 years probably, he grabs the ball, pretends to throw it in the crowd, because he's proud of the rookie, and he wants to have some fun with them. It's always him doing that. Sort of to your point, one of my favorite things is when he makes a mistake and you see the disappointment on his face, because he doesn't often show emotion, right? Like when he hits a home run or something, he's pretty stoic. Like once in a blue moon, you'll see like a little grin or something. But when he makes a mistake, like if he makes an error, there was an error he made a couple weeks ago, and you could tell he was fuming internally, but he also has that like killer instinct on the field where he wants to rip the heart out of his opposition. So he's not going to be shaking his head and like, he had a strikeout last week where he chased a pitch that was like close to the dirt or maybe in the dirt. And his whole way back to the dugout, he's like resisting. Every fiber in his being wanted to like shake his head, look up to the sky, snap his bat over his knee. You could tell he's like, Jose, what are you doing? That is not a pitch you chase. Like, you're on fire right now. Like, how are you going to screw that up? And that's what I mean when it's like, you know, he is just itching to get back in the batter's box because he's never going to make that mistake twice in a row. And the next time he came up, I think he like hit a double or something. So it's those moments where he's like, I am so good at this game. I'm so smart. I'm always one step ahead. So when I do screw up and it's like an unforced error, it's because of me, not because of maybe something the pitcher did well, or even if the pitcher did something well, like I'm Jose Ramirez, I can counteract that. it's the disappointment and the frustration you see that he wants to express but will never fully embrace, because then that lets the opposition know that like they're in control.
Doesn't want to give anybody the satisfaction of knowing he wants that to be something that no one else thought of, and he thought about it, and that's it. And he wants to be able to go back to the dugout thinking this is just a casual strikeout, not that you got one over on me.
Have you ever seen him maybe take like a first pitch slider or something, and it's a strike, and he looks at the pitcher and he almost gives like a okay, yep, all right, I see that. Like, that was a nice pitch, but like, I dare you to throw it again, basically. It's like he's just always at the peak of his powers, I feel like, and is in control. And you see it the way he runs the bases. Like, he's almost always making the right decision. He's almost always catching the defense sleeping. And, you know, I know he struggled early on this season defensively. I think for the most part over his career, like, he's been a very good third baseman and is always making the right play, throwing to the right base, making a key play at the right moment. I think back to that play he made against Tampa in the playoffs in 22, that saved game 2 essentially. And then at the plate, it's just, it's got to be so hard to strike him out twice, because he's just going to make adjustments and he's going to know exactly what he did wrong, what he didn't capitalize on, and he's not going to forget it.
Dude is always learning and adapting and taking information and trying to use it against you in his next opportunity. I mean, look at the way that you would envision, because he's getting older and maybe the eyesight isn't quite what it is. Maybe you can't judge the strike zone exactly the way that you once did, or maybe the swing starts to tail off a little bit, so you need to start it a little bit sooner, which means you have less time to wait for a ball to travel and judge whether that's going to be a ball or a strike. And yet still, he's at a 10.5% strikeout rate, which is lower than last year. It's actually lower than 2023 when the offense dipped a little bit. And it's interesting, the power dipped a bit in 23, but the strikeouts were down where it had been for like 12%, 13.7, 16.9. So you're thinking maybe he focused a little bit more on contact, sacrificed a little bit of power. This year, the slugging percentage is its highest since 2017 for him. So his strikeout rate is the lowest it's been since 2026, and his power is up the highest it's been since 2017. Just in terms of slugging. And I know that's propped up a little bit by a higher batting average, but that's incredible that still at this point in his career, he's got an 8.4% walk rate, which is higher than last year. And that's I think a big key, something we've talked about before. And this is where I was talking before, where some lineup protection doesn't matter as much as we often think it does, because teams will pitch around you because you're the best hitter on the team. We're going to let anybody else beat us, even if they're like a fraction below you. I'll take my chances with the next guy. But when you don't have anybody within the lineup that's going to be able to drive Jose in if he's on first base or second base if he's stealing a bag, they're going to be more willing to pitch on the corners. And if you don't swing, that's fine. Take your walk. But I'm going to make a good pitch against you. And we've seen with Jose what happens with him in those situations. He gets out of his game plan because he wants to make it happen, and he realizes, I've got to be the offense here. We've seen so much more of a willingness, and you've brought it up, I think, for several shows. He's taking his walks this year. He's taking the walks, and he's been willing to live with some singles. I don't know if that's an actual reflection of the confidence he has in the guys around him, or if he's just realizing, to be at my best, sometimes I just do have to take the singles and the walks. Maybe this is just a good stretch for him where he's seeing the ball well, and I'm making too much of it. But I really think it's what earns him the pitches later to do damage by taking the walks and taking the singles and being willing to live for the next at-bat and trust that the guys behind you are going to drive you in if given the opportunity.
He's 34 home runs away from 300. 43 stolen bases away from 300. Is there any doubt he gets to 350, 350?
I wouldn't doubt anything about this man.
Yeah, so he would join Barry Bonds as the only 350 guy ever.
That doesn't even seem like a real stat to me.
Yeah, I mean that's what I hate the why is he so underrated conversation. And I've been working on this feature on him forever, trying to portray this conversation in the right way. But I think we're going to look up one day and he's going to be like 35, 36. And you're going to see the career stats and be like, good Lord, this dude he was like one of the best players of a generation.
I mean, look at the remarkable consistency year to year.
Yeah.
And you can do that with individual seasons. You can find guys with Cleveland, right, that had great individual years or 2-3 year stretches where they were fantastic. But to be able to do it year after year over a decade. I mean, yeah, I guess I glanced past 2020. So he had a 607 slugging percentage in 2020. I often don't even think of that as a full season. The funny part is he played 58 games in 2020. He's at 56 games now. So he's like a little bit below an at-bats where he was at in 2020. That was the full 2020 season compared to what we're at now. And we were thinking about that being a MVP caliber season. He had a 167 WRC plus that year. He's at 161 this year. Just an equally as amazing stretch.
So I had to do Cleveland's all quarter century team, the best players at each position since 2000. Surprisingly, there was not much debate. I know you and I talked about this briefly, but it wasn't hard. And third base is hilarious because Jose Ramirez is up to 54 career WAR, according to Fangraphs, and obviously that's all within the last quarter century.
Yeah. Who's second?
Do you know who
Jason
ranks,
Nix?
Do you know what third baseman ranks second on the list? And third baseman is like, that's a stretch because he played everywhere.
Casey Blake?
Casey Blake, yeah. At 13.5. So Ramirez is 4 times as much WAR as anybody else who played third base for Cleveland in the last quarter century.
Yeah.
Lonnie Chisenhall's next at 8.
Not a surprise.
Then Jamie Carroll at 3.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. So, but it just shows you like there's, and I know, the longevity helps. He's been at that position now for basically 9 years, and they haven't really had guy like there's been a lot of turnover there. Mark DeRosa's on this list. Aaron Boone. Shoot, Will Wilson is one of 16 players with a positive WAR who's primarily played third base, just behind Enrique Wilson. So,
where's Carlos Santana on that list?
I don't see him. Remember Chris Gomez? Juan Uribe, negative 0.5 WAR.
But I think how much of Jose's WAR total should actually be bumped to Uribe a little bit because he helped bring him out of his shell.
Absolutely did.
Yeah, I
Jack
think he
Hanahan?
deserves some credit. Deserves some credit there.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, like, this guy, a lot of times, and I'm not, this is not a payroll salary conversation. A lot of times the big contracts, the mega contracts don't work, right? Or you're reeling late on in the, you're paying Miguel Cabrera $32 million to be a 600 OPS DH who can't move, right? Jose Ramirez is like, he might very well be worth $23 million in 2027, $25 million at the age of 35 in 2028. Very well could be worth that money and then some. And that's not like, obviously he's providing way more value than he's costing you financially all these years leading up to that. But I don't think we knew what to expect, what this guy would look like at the age of 34, 35. But, well, he's 32 in 8 months or 9 months. And looks like he's maybe not as good as ever, but like one little step beneath that.
Where do you think Jose ranks among some of the greatest hitters you've ever seen? This is a question you asked me. I imagine you would have thought about it a little bit, but apparently not.
You'd think so.
And the reason why it's interesting is we've seen great years from Albert Bell. We've seen great years from Jim Thome, Manny Ramirez, just us personally. Seen great years from Grady Sizemore. And the list can go on and on. But Jose, as we've talked about, is not purely just a hitter. And that's what's always made him probably feel a little bit underrated, although I really don't know if that's the case anymore. Where does he rank just in terms of hitting? Because this is a guy that Ron Washington's willing to put on first base early in the game. First inning, third inning, sure. What doesn't matter?
So the name that pops up first in a conversation like this to me is Manny Ramirez. And I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's intangible. It's something about...
It's the last name.
It's something about the swing, the power, the effortless power. I don't know. Something about that just is mesmerizing. That I would want to put him first. I will say, you look at some of the lineups Jose Ramirez hit in from like 16 to 18 or 19, and it's one thing for him to be producing the way he is with Gabriel Arias and Angel Martinez and Nolan Jones sitting around him. He was still the best hitter, probably the most feared hitter in a lineup that had Lindor and Kipnis and Encarnacion and Josh Donaldson for a minute and guys like that. Like, I would be willing to guess, especially because he's a switch hitter, especially because he's got such a good grasp of the strike zone. Like as incredible as Jim Thome was, and this isn't even a slight on him. I mean, the guy drew 120 walks year in and year out. There were holes in his swing. Like, you could strike him out. That is a very possible outcome when you're facing him, right? He could also hit the ball 511 feet. But like with Jose, it's like, you're praying he chases, I guess, and pops out. There are many ways he can beat you. So to me, I think like the short list is Manny Ramirez, Jose Ramirez, and Albert Bell. Does that sound right?
That we've had the pleasure of watching, sure. I think that's an absolutely fair take, because I would say Manny Ramirez was, in terms of how sweet the swing looked, just watching it, you don't see many right-handed hitters that have a sweet swing, but I always felt like Manny did, one that you liked. I think there is some element to Manny where we all envision him just being kind of silly and goofy and sometimes dumb, but I think he was pretty smart in the batter's box, and I think he had what Jose does a great job of bringing the pitcher in and instilling a false sense of security before you go for the throat. I think Manny Ramirez had a bit of that. Just, he's not smart enough to know I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. And then he absolutely did know that you were going to do X, Y, and Z and made you pay for it and sent Dennis Eckersley to the dugout with a wow expression on his face because he wasn't expecting you to be able to get to the pitch he threw. I would believe that.
I had someone describe Manny to me once as an MIT professor in the batter's box and like a kindergartner everywhere else.
I believe it.
I would put like Roberto Alomar on the cusp for me too. And this is not like some statistical evidence based discussion here, but for 3 years in Cleveland, I felt like that guy would never get out. And he could hit for power. He racked up doubles, would steal bases, draw walks. Obviously, always hit for average. Like, he was up there for me too.
I got another one for you. It's unfortunate because his career just fizzled because of he had too many injuries and just nagging things piling up. But Travis Hafner, early in his career, there is a 3-year stretch from 2004 to 2006, and the 2006 season in itself is bonkers. For a 3-year period, the man put up a 1,030 OPS.
Do you know where that ranks in MLB over that 3-year period?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Third, topped only by Barry Bonds and Albert Pujols.
103 home runs, a 308 average, a 419 on base percentage in that 2006 season, 42 bombs, 117 driven in, 100 walks, 111 strikeouts. 100 walks, that's just incredible. 308, 439, 659, leading with a big, bold black in that slugging percentage and OPS. For that 3-year period, he was as fearsome of a hitter as there was in baseball. So I know we kind of forget about that at times because it just tailed off after that. And he got the contract in 07, the extension, and he was even not as good in 07. And then the injuries and was it back issues and stuff just piled up.
I think what makes Jose great is like it's hard to identify the peak, right? I mean, he burst onto the scene in 16 and it's like, oh, like this is the guy we saw in the minors, like a 300 hitter who's not going to hit for much power, but there's a lot of doubles and OPS is over 800, hits for average. Like that's a great player. And then the next year, 29 home runs, 56 doubles, hits 318, OPS over 950, and you're like, okay, this is one of the best hitters in baseball, maybe. But we've seen over the years, like the power is usually pretty steady in that 25 to 35 home run range. The stolen bases are there. There's one season where he walked 106 times. He's led the league in doubles a couple times. And it's because it's longevity more than peak, and because it's so steady, it's hard. Like you're right. Hafner for 3 years was a top 3, top 5 hitter in baseball. And Jose's probably been that too, but maybe it's not quite top 3. Maybe it's like top 10. But when you take into account the stolen bases and the defense and just the base running in general and how hard he is to get out and how he doesn't strike out. And it's like, he's done that for a decade. Like that's what makes him incredible. That's why this conversation is tough. Cause I think we look back and I'm like, I've seen so many videos of Albert Bell and I've studied his stats in 95. And it's like, how did anyone ever get this guy out? That guy was unbelievable at his peak. And you can say the same thing about Hafner and Ramirez. And Jose maybe doesn't quite have like that one season that's like, oh my God. Like, and maybe it would have been last year if he went 40-40. But even last year, like the OPS wasn't 900. We're waiting for him to go like 320, 420, 600 or something. Or I guess win an MVP. But he's just been so good for so long without living off of 1 or 2 peak seasons. Maybe that's why he's underrated. I don't know.
I don't know. He shouldn't be. At this point, I feel like we're yelling about it. I mean, we spent over 30 minutes talking just about Jose in a series where the Guardians take another series from the Angels at home, which is just commonplace at this point. Briefly, the guy that's right next to him on the infield, Arias, so he has the error that goes through the glove, right? He looks down at the glove, and there's an actual hole. He did the thing that we all do, whether it was playing when you were young, and if you have an error, you would always look at the glove. It had to have been an issue with the glove. It also reminded me of, if you're ever just walking anywhere and you trip a little bit, and you always look down at the ground, like, what did I just trip over? It had to have been something. It couldn't have been just that I'm clumsy. It had to have been an issue with the ground. Arias did the thing that we all do when we mess up, but he actually had an actual reason for it because the glove did have a hole in it as the ball scooted through it. I just found that funny.
You look down at nothing and say to no one, hey, you should probably fix that.
Tripping over the 10-yard line. Jose's on fire. Carlos Santana's been on fire. We've given him the love for that. 11-game hitting streak now. 447 with a 1290 OPS. I hope that continues more. I like when the old man is swinging the bat like that and making me look foolish for ever doubting him. And then for a guy that's quietly heating up himself. The last 14 games for Nolan Jones, he's hitting 350. 538 with runners in scoring position. We talked about the at-bat he had where he tied the game on the Patreon show, where he just had a nice piece of hitting, hit it where the shortstop would have been on any other player, and helped tie the game that way. And coming through in a situation like that, I'm sure helps the confidence. It was a game where he entered without even thinking he was going to be in the game. Apparently, just that mentality itself might be helping him.
Yeah, this is a guy who's hard on himself and had an incredible rookie year for the Rockies. Had a miserable season from hell last season and was excited to come back to Cleveland, to an organization he's familiar with and teammates he knows well, and not be part of a team that's 9-50 now. And I think, he got off to a slow start, and he even admitted it. So first of all, Stephen Vogt was like, every hitter in the universe, whether you're the first ballot Hall of Famer or a rookie trying to just make it in the league, like when you're struggling, it is absolutely impossible not to press, not to agonize over it 24 hours a day, not to go home after a game and lie in bed and think about what you're doing wrong, not to study the stats that look so ugly every time they're displayed on the scoreboard. And Nolan Jones admitted it's impossible too. Like he was going home every night, watching video of his swing, standing in front of the mirror in his bedroom and practicing just the swinging motion in front of the mirror. And finally his fiance is like, dude, this is crazy. You got to stop this. And so he took a deep breath and he stopped and he said, you know what? This isn't working. I'm driving myself nuts. It's only going to be detrimental. Let me just exhale for a second and just basically try less hard. That's how he phrased it. And you see the metrics, and we talked about the hard hit rate and the chase rate and the exit velocity, and those all look great. And a lot of times that would add up to a successful hitter, and it wasn't translating. And is it because he's late on the fastball? Is he caught in between? Is his swing path not where it should be? And the solution was, instead of trying to just crush everything because you hit the ball hard, and if you keep hitting the ball hard, it'll result in extra bases and like the slugging percentage will be where it needs to be, etc. Just hit the ball up the middle. Just try to hit a single. That's it. Don't make this out to be some complicated thing you can't solve. You've been a successful hitter in the major leagues before. And so that's why you've seen, I think he's got like 16 hits in his last 14 games or whatever, and all but one is a single. And so, yeah, like the slugging percentage is still suffering, but you're seeing the average and the on-base percentage go up, and you're seeing confidence go up. And eventually, pitchers are going to have to throw him more of what he wants because he's proven that he's not going to like be super patient and fall behind in the count and then try to uncork some massive swing to hit a home run. You throw him a first pitch fastball over the middle, he's going to hit it up the middle. So I think that's helped. It's allowed him to settle in a little bit. And it's big for the Guardians, too. I mean, like, how huge was it that Saturday game when they're trailing and he's hitting at the bottom of the order? And that was his one non-single in the last few weeks. It was a triple that he turned into a little league home run. But, I mean, that's his game. Like, he's got power, he's got speed. And if he can, like, just get on base, just like that's such a benefit to this offense that has had the absolute worst production from its right fielders in baseball. I think last I checked, the WRC plus was in the 30s, and I'm sure that's gone up a little bit with Jones' resurgence. He had 5 multi-hit games in his first 49 games, and he's got 3 in the last 4. So he's got to keep it up. But I think, you're seeing singles now, and that's a really good start because he hits the ball hard enough that eventually that's going to blossom into extra base power. And it's just little steps for him, I think, can go a long way.
I think that's probably true of all hitters. Even the power guys, it's a cycle where you're in a funk, simplify, be cool with your singles. Maybe this is what happened with Jose. He had a lot of singles, just getting on base via hits, even if they're not going over the fence. And then eventually what happens? The power comes back because these are good hitters. that do know how to get the most out of their talent, but maybe they just need to be in a place where they just feel good and that the bat path is where you want it, that you're not swinging at junk, trying to make too much happen, and then you start earning the pitches that you drive, and then you settle into that fully great, blossomed, I love everything about hitting stretch. And then maybe you start to lean into it too much, you start pulling on a little bit too much, then you're grounding out to second base, and you got to reset the cycle all over again. I would imagine it's that way for all hitters. You just got to go through and figure out, how do I get myself back right? What's the approach that's going to get me back on the path to getting the most out of hitting the ball hard? Because even we had talked about it a couple shows ago, I think. We'd been championing the below the surface. The Baseball Savant page is telling a much different story than the surface numbers. And we were saying that all the time. But eventually we both said, that's great, but you need to carry actual production, because even if the numbers below the surface are great, there are other guys that are going to get an opportunity if you're not getting anything out of it for whatever reason. But even then, below the surface, he wasn't then hitting with a ton of authority and making you have confidence that a great big surge was around the corner. It took an actual adjustment from him to maybe not focus so much on hitting the ball hard. I mean, I don't think there's any one just, this is the one blueprint that every hitter has to follow to get themselves out of a funk. I don't think that's true. Everybody has to figure out what works for them. For some, maybe it's more homework. Maybe it is taking it home and looking at yourself in the mirror. And for other guys, maybe that are so much in their own head, just simplifying it and realizing, I was a good hitter to get to this place. And it, even if Zack and TJ talked about my time in Colorado being not exactly earned, my numbers weren't quite that good, I still had a really amazing season with the Rockies.
That's the thing. He hit lefties. He hit well on the road that year. So I don't think it's as hollow as you would think. The thing is, like, you can tell a hitter, I remember Josh Naylor went through this a couple years ago. You can tell a hitter, hey man, just stick with it. Like, the metrics are good. Everything's going to come around. And like, okay, that's nice to hear for a day or two. Maybe for a week or two. But then it's like 2 months of this and you want to just be like, shut up. Like, I need proof. You can't keep telling me that. And I think it's so easy as a hitter when, again, it's so cliche, but like, if you fail 7 out of every 10 times at the plate, like, you're an all-star because you're hitting 300, right? It is a game based on failure. It is so easy to lose confidence, so easy to drive yourself crazy, trying to figure out how to get back on track. That's why I think, like, the best hitters, they make those ruts short. I mean, Jose Ramirez had us panicking because he was pedestrian for 3 weeks, and now he's been incredible for 5. That's what the best hitters do. They make, like, even Steven Kwan, like, he had a pretty quiet May, and then he hits a home run on Saturday, and like, he looks like himself, and he's still hitting over 300. And like, the best hitters, they ride the way. I'm trying to remember who said this. It might have been Mark Reynolds, one of his pearls of wisdom before he predicted his own DFA. It was like, you ride the wave as long as you can, and then when it gets choppy, you just like hop off the surfboard as quickly as you can. Something like that.
That makes no sense, but it makes total sense.
You know what I mean? I don't even remember if that was it wasn't exactly that. It was along those lines. Like, the good stretches, you want to elongate them.
Just try to survive as much as you keep your head above water when things aren't going well.
Any other water-based metaphors? Avoid sharks.
Try to. I mean, that's
wear
no
sunscreen.
Different. That's no different than the baseball team itself. Like, survive while you can. Win as many games as you can when you can't figure out the starting staff, and maybe the guys in the bullpen aren't having their great stretch, or guys just aren't hitting in the clutch. But find a way to stay above water. Every team is going to have that 2-week winning streak or something like that. Even the Colorado Rockies at some point this year, maybe they're going to test this. But I think the Colorado Rockies are going to sweep somebody at some point. They're going to take somebody down. It should be someone they have no business doing it. But even teams as awful as that,
Maybe your son's Little League team. I said maybe.
Maybe the Rockies are going to be the exception to the rule, but every team finds a way to get hot. Every team has their best stretch. Every team has their worst stretch, but just minimize the worst stretch. And I think that's the same for a hitter. Now, of course, it's happening for a good time for Nolan Jones because guys are starting to come back off the injured list. This roster is getting a little bit more cluttered. How many DHs do the Guardians need, or can they survive with? You're happy to ask that question when it means David Fry has come back. And just a great moment for him to just be able to experience it. Like, this dude deserves the flowers. Even if he never does a single thing for the rest of his Guardians career, he saved their butts not only throughout the season last year, but also the home run he had against the Detroit Tigers to guarantee there'd be a Game 5, and then, of course, winning a game in the ALCS with a walk-off home run after John Kensey Noel's heroics. That dude deserves his moment of, yes, applaud for coming back off of what is typically reserved an injury for pitchers. Yes, get your ass back here, even if we're not sure how the hell we're going to use you.
He got a standing O after a strikeout. I mean, how many hitters can say that they've received that, which is pretty. It was a cool moment. You know, I think you can sense a little uptick in clubhouse banter with him back. He is definitely one of the personalities that I think players gravitate toward, and like it's like him and Austin Hedges are back bickering. You know, Fry's he's there like 2 days, and Hedges is already yelling at him for crossing the line over to Hedges' locker and taking up space, and then Fry's teasing him about what a great impact he had by catching the 9th inning of the win on Sunday. And so it's yeah, I think it's good for just camaraderie. It's good for the dugout. It's also just a nice threat, and especially with Kensey Noel not doing much. It's great to have another right-handed bat who you will certainly see against the Yankees this week against Carlos Rodon and Max Fried. How often he plays is a good question, and what it means for Manzardo and Santana, especially with Santana scorching hot at the moment, is a good question. But I think they've shown, you know, he didn't start Saturday or Sunday. So maybe they're not going to force the issue. Maybe they trust that he's a good enough hitter and understands his role and has served a variety of different roles on the roster, that like it's not a guy, you know, if you need him to pinch hit in the 9th inning and he's been ice cold twiddling his thumbs all night, he can handle that. And, you know, he didn't play Saturday, gets one at bat Sunday, off day Monday, but you would think he's going to be in the lineup Tuesday, and like he can handle that too. So, and also like I wouldn't be surprised if he's hitting second against a lefty, and it seems like a better option than some of the guys that they've cycled through there, especially with Lane Thomas on the injured list, who ordinarily would be a good option against a lefty. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to have him back. It's definitely crowded. Doesn't solve issues at shortstop or second base or center field or catcher or right field. And those are all still works in progress to varying degrees. But I think just a guy who was an enormous and probably underrated part of the team last year, even before the big home runs in the postseason. It's always good to have that back.
Yeah, I'm not even sure he got to be a point where he's pretty much an everyday player last year. I still don't know like if that's his best use throughout his career, or is it just being the guy that comes in off the bench? Maybe you are aggressive with pinch hitting if there's a big spot in the 5th, 6th, 7th inning. I noticed, like you, even Manzardo, I thought there was an at-bat on, I think it was Sunday, where it just screamed, this would be a great place for Fry to get in here, and they didn't do it. They kept Manzardo in here, so I thought that was curious that they didn't immediately pull the trigger on that. But I think you save him for the lefty at-bat where you're seeking some leverage. Maybe it's when Bo Naylor's hitting against the lefty in the 7th inning or something like that. But the most important thing I would think for the Guardians is being able to get him continued on the throwing program so that hopefully later in this year he is a guy that can help you some in the field. where you see fit. And then, of course, trying to get him back to where next year he could be an additional catcher for you. Mm-hmm. And that's where he really is a big benefit if he can do that.
Right. That's the goal, is for him to be able to catch next season in some capacity. But yeah, he's throwing every day right now, I think out to 60 feet. And that's just going to be a work in progress. And like, there's hope that he can maybe play the field late in the season, but they're certainly not going to put any expectations on it or even like say exactly what positions that would entail. But any versatility is welcome, certainly. But, I think just having that threat, even if it's a part-time bench role, I think is helpful.
One guy coming back off a scary thing. You had the scary thing with Walters. I felt so bad for him. I know everybody felt bad for him. I heard the clip of Hammy talking about it in the moment. It sucks because there are times where guys leave the field and there's like a hope. Ooh, that didn't look good. We'll see what happens here. And then there are times where guys have had horrific arm injuries when they've released the ball, and immediately, oh, man, I feel for them. Not only are they in pain, but imagine everything that's going through their mind in that very moment. For so many pitchers, it's, well, there's 12 to 18 months of my career just off the map, and who knows where's the team going to be? Where am I going to be? Am I even going to be able to play this? I mean, there's so much that has to go through your mind. So seeing Walters immediately in pain, you think, worst case scenario. This is not oh, well, he's leaving kind of holding his arm. This is, no, he's done. Then you hear it's a lat. You're like, a lat? Okay, well, maybe that's better. And then you hear, well, it's pretty serious. It might require surgery. Okay, maybe not so great. I just felt awful for him because it's a thing that as you're watching it, in the moment, right then and there's no question, this is a serious thing.
Yeah, I could sense frustration in his voice before that. And he was reflecting on how his season has gone so far, where he had injury stuff in spring training and he's got shoulder issues and he's working his way back. And I mean, it probably cost him an opening day roster spot, and he's got to get his feet under him at AAA. And I think that was frustrating to him too. And so to have that and then make it back and have this injury, anytime you hear significant tear, that's not what you want to hear. So, yeah, I don't know what exactly his prognosis is moving forward or what a timetable could be, but it's too bad because we've been saying like the back end of the bullpen is you still love what you have in Clase and Gaddis and Smith. I think Heron will eventually be fine, but there's room for the bullpen as a whole to get better, and Walters was a big reason why.
Yeah, I was very excited. I mean, people even around the game, apparently, I've seen him floated in trade rumors, apparently, as being a hot commodity. But he was someone that I was thinking of, especially with the way Vogt has been using the bullpen here a little bit more recently, where he's going to give a guy like a couple of innings instead of just running, here's all my best guys every single game that we're winning. Maybe if I can squeeze a guy to a 2-inning appearance and then save the guy for the next day where maybe he can go 2 innings. We're just seeing the pen used a little bit differently, and Walters would have been a nice guy to sort of float within that realm. Maybe he's not part of the upper third or the top 3, but he was in that next line, and I thought he could equally come in and get 7th, 8th inning appearances and be able to handle big-time hitters. So it was unfortunate just from the team aspect, but I felt awful for him in the moment. Same thing for Will Brennan. I know that situation is sort of reminiscent of maybe where David Fry felt like he was at. And I just feel bad because especially a guy like Brennan, he's at a point in his career where his career might be in limbo. Not necessarily that he'll never get a job again, but is he going to still be a member of the Guardians organization in a year? You don't really know. So I feel bad for him not really knowing where he's going to be in the next 12 to 18 months as he tries to work his way back. And we're obviously seeking more information on that, but doesn't really feel like it's in a good place given who he's going to see.
Imagine being Dr. Meister. Like everybody comes to you
they hate
at
you.
at their low point, and then you give them the news that they figured you would give them, but it's not what they want to hear. I asked Antonetti, I was like, does anyone ever leave Keith Meister's office like happy-go-lucky? Yeah.
Has he ever
Or does
said,
anyone
no?
ever enter it like, I'm going to see Dr. Meister tomorrow. Can't wait.
Like he looks at the elbow and everything, like gives it a few taps. He's like, nope, good as new. You're good. Good to go. That's never happened. Can't imagine anyone's ever happy to see him. Let's leave on some good news. Shane Bieber gets back on a mound on his birthday. They had
On
to have
your
timed
birthday.
that. Oh yeah, I forgot.
How was your birthday?
It was good. It was good. I was only concerned about making sure I abandoned my diet for a day, and because of the kids, Ethan had basketball, Avery had dance pictures. It ended up being not quite as the extravaganza I was anticipating for my birthday, but that's fine. It's more important that the kids got their stuff in. But more importantly, I just got to make sure I'm in such good of shape that Carlos Santana looks at me and thinks, when I'm 41, I hope that I'm just as good as TJ is.
Do you realize, remember how old we all thought Jason Giambi seemed when he was his first year with Cleveland?
Yeah.
The year he hit that home run that saved their season? He was 42. So that's what you're approaching, that stage.
You want to see my golden thong?
No, come on.
We could be seeing Shane Bieber. Well, all goes well, we will be seeing Shane Bieber within a month.
Yeah.
That is such good news. That is fantastic.
Yeah, so his 30-day rehab window opened Saturday with that dominant start on a backfield in Arizona with grainy footage. And I was told he was throwing 92 to 94 with a changeup that looks new and improved and has more depth.
Oh, love it.
Where have you heard that before? But
Is he been allowed to throw the slider? I know they're always a little
I don't
weird
know
about
specifically.
that
I know he was throwing secondary stuff, so I would assume. I'm not sure. Basically, so the 30-day window would end at the end of June. So depending on how they want to play this, because his next start's going to be Thursday for Akron, and that's 5 days after his previous one. So if he goes every 5 days, they would have a decision to make, I think, on the last day of June, where he could either make one more rehab start, or he could start for the Guardians. So theoretically, like, I would say he could be back anytime between June 25th and July 5th. And, you know, like, I don't know, there's a scenario where, like, what if he debuted at Wrigley Field against the Cubs with Matt Boyd pitching for Chicago?
God, you are such a baseball writer. Just bubbling to the surface. You're just hoping the story writes itself.
Yeah. I mean, so I think you'll see him in, I said like 4 weeks, give or take a few days, but here it is. Like he's got obviously steps to check off here. He's going to go 3 innings or 50 pitches Thursday, and then you just build up a little bit each time, or there'll be times where he needs to repeat what he did too. But by all accounts, look sharp. And this is not, I know this is a different situation, but just because, like, yeah, you're pitching against mostly like 18, 19-year-olds in Arizona. Well, it didn't go well against those 18 and 19-year-olds the day before for Tristan McKenzie. So I think it does say something. Just Bieber was sharp, efficient, in control, looked how you would want him to look. And that's a good sign.
You mentioning depth of pitches, it reminded me of something I wanted to talk about real quickly, and it's not anything I want to spend too much time on. It was just something to keep in the back of my mind and keep watching, because I like what I'm seeing right now. Maybe this is even something you can talk to somebody about to see if there's something to it. Watching Clase and reading the velocities, he's still getting the cutter up to 100. Maybe not as frequently as he once did, and like up to the 102s, but still the velocity looks fine to me most days. But I was noticing, and I don't know if you've noticed on the slider, especially in the finale, it was down around like 85. It was in the 85 to 87 range. And sometimes he'd throw that up to 89 to 91. You'd see that a lot. And I was wondering, and this is true just in terms of looking at the break on the pitches, he's getting a little bit more depth. like a little bit more vertical drop on the slider, a little bit more glove side run. I would love to, and this is something that I think in theory sounds great. I'm not sure if a pitcher can actually do this. But I would love to see Clase almost throw a couple different variations of the slider. Throw like the typical one that registers 89, 90. That's just a little less hard version of the cutter. But also throw one with a little less speed and a little bit more depth. Because imagine if he can still cruise in at 99.5 to 100.5 with the cutter and still throw like a harder version of the slider that doesn't have as much depth, but then be able to throw a little bit more of a looping slider at a little less speed, but keep that differentiation of velocity between 13 to 15 miles per hour. I would imagine that makes him a lot more difficult to read and make contact on, and I think would give him a little bit more swing and miss. I would love to see that. But the thing is, pitchers will tell you it's not easy to keep the same arm action and, well, I'm going to throw one a little bit slower than the other one to try to do, because sometimes that can mess up the delivery or it makes it obvious to the hitter that doesn't look right. I know this is going to be the big looping version of the slider, even though it's not really a looping version of the slider compared to the normal one. But it was something that I saw in the velocity dip, and I'm wondering if it's a thing that they're actually doing on purpose to maybe create a little bit more swing and miss from him and give him more of another out pitch, or at least something for hitters to take them off of the 100 miles per hour that they're expecting with the cutter and maybe being able to crush a slider that's in a bad spot.
Yeah, I think that's part of why he has flirted with the idea of the sinker for a couple of years now. And I think we even saw it a little bit in the second half last year. Just something that's like in between those two pitches and is, in that case, moving the opposite direction. But, you know, it's interesting. I've been following his velocity the last couple of weeks because his cutter velo was down for a few appearances too, where it was 96, 97, 98. And the slider was down with it, mid-80s, as you said. But what's happened is the cutter's back up. Last three outings, I think it's 99, 100, and 99.2. And the slider velo has been sporadic. I mean, it's been like 89, 89, 86, 86, 89, 86. Like, so I'm trying to figure out the rhyme or reason to it. I don't know if there's a rhyme or reason to it. I don't know if he's just working through like what the best version of that pitch is.
Yeah, maybe.
But clearly there's something in the works here. Clearly there's something he's working through. And it's good to see the cutter velo back to where you want it to be. And you just got to figure out what's version of the slider is going to pair best with that. Or versions.
I mean, wouldn't it make sense if it is a little less in velocity? You probably would get more depth with it because it allows gravity. You're allowing just a fraction of more time for gravity to work on the pitch as opposed to throwing it harder. But if you throw it a little bit less as hard, you're going to have more time for some vertical dip or some time to move towards the arm side. I mean, it is in the data. I can see a little bit more arm side run and a little bit more vertical drop. But I don't know if it's just a product of the pitch has been registering 89 compared to in the past 90, 91. Or if it's a tangible thing. But again, this is something that like I've noticed, and it's something I just want to file away and maybe just present it out there and see if it's a thing that a trend that continues.
That's what I mean. You should see how much my 43 mile an hour curveball moves because of gravity.
It's all in the gravity. You should see the vertical drop on the ephus pitch. Just way up there, comes back down.
We got to bring those back.
Do we?
Yeah. I like when guys throw soft. Kershaw
Zack
was throwing like 71 mile an hour curveballs.
More Zack
other day.
Greinke, just absolutely toying with the one that always pops up is the poor guy that was it Vargas who couldn't swing at one point with the Dodgers, and Greinke just was like, "All right, here you go, woo!" Really slow, and then a really fast one, and then slow again.